Hey there, today we're going to talk about something I like to call ancient Egyptian warfare. Alright, so we're going to break down Egyptian warfare into three little categories, and these categories are what I like to call weaponry, chariots, and the Battle of Kadesh. We're going to go into detail about each one of these, so let's get started. The bow and arrow and the stone mace are the earliest weapons used in warfare. The length of the arrows were 75 centimeters long. Made of wood or reed and feathers, flint arrowheads were later replaced with bronze. A metal or leather brace protected by the archer's wrist from the rub of the string, usually made of gut or hide. The case called a quiver to carry the arrows was carried on the back or attached to the chariot. Egyptians sometimes used slings, but not as often as the Asians. Although tomb art portrays a ruler holding a mace, the most common weapons were wooden clubs or battle axes made of metal. The axes held D-shaped blades which were used to fight unarmored soldiers. Magic was another quote-unquote weapon of warfare. Enemies' names are found in the alabaster or pottery statuettes. It was thought that by smashing or cursing these articles would weaken the power of the enemies. Following the peace pact by the Hittites, they sent the Egyptian craftsmen to make armor and to instruct them in weapon technology, including how to make airtight shields. Only after learning to use the weapons of their sworn enemies for years did the Egyptians finally advance in warfare and use bronze. The horse and chariot were brought to Egypt by the Hyksos. The chariot carried two soldiers. The driver was the charioteer. He controlled the two horses and used a shield made of leather and wood to protect the warrior. He used his bow and arrow to pick off enemies. He also hurled javelins to use from close range to take care of people that were basically right next to you. The chariot itself was composed of wood, leather, and wicker. Ramses II was the son of Seti I, who appointed him as the co-ruler while still a child. Later, when he ruled alone, Ramses bragged that he was the birth of the divine king. Under the rule of Ramses II, around 1290 BC, the Sea People started to invade Egypt. Then at some point the Sea People were defeated, and many of them opted to join the Libyans and the Nubians in the fight in the Egyptian wars in Syria, Palestine. Here the Hittites were attempting to gain power from Anatolia southward. 4 divisions of Egyptian armies approached Kadesh. 20,000 men were in 4 groups of 5,000 men each. There were infantry sections of 200 men, and chariots in groups of 25. Novice and veteran soldiers fought side by side, although the king's guards were only the elite. Behind a rectangular board, which was regularly painted and carved, marched the groups of soldiers. Each section had a symbol named after the gods. Because of incorrect advice, Ramses II proceeded with the fight with only a fraction of his troops with him. The Hittites lied in wait, and Ramses bragged that he was the one whose bravery and inspiration to forge on against the enemy saved the day. He embellished the Battle of Kadesh as a great victory, and this misrepresentation was placed on the walls of important temples and bragged about and believed for centuries to come. The fact is, the large army of the Hittite king met the small army of Ramses. Muwatalli quashed the Second Egyptian section, which was hoping to reunite with the first section. It proceeded to defeat Ramses and his troops. Reinforcements attacked the Hittites, and with Ramses' soldiers they were able to destroy many enemy chariots. The third section had arrived, then a fourth, and the Egyptians were ready to fight the next morning. Muwatalli held its ground, and the battle concluded without a victor. When Ramses was in fear for his life, he begged his god, Amun, to intervene. Ramses II showed he was a servant of God, and not God himself because of this action. Actually, although if Ramses escaped, it was the Hittites who were victorious, and their hold tightened on Syria. Ramses refused a peace offer from the Hittites, but a truce was eventually declared. The Egyptians were able to go home with prisoners and riches, but they did not receive their goal. Egypt never was able to reclaim Kadesh and Aruru. The peace strengthened the northern front, and the international trade became prosperous. The marriage of Ramses II, the daughter of the Hittite king Hattusil, sealed the agreement of the peace treaty brought on by the threats of the lethal Assyrians. Little is known about the form of warfare. Coordination and discipline were lacking at the Battle of Kadesh, but bravery of some was noted. Old paintings and tombs show that people's lives were greatly affected by the warfare. Ramses II himself reigned for 67 years and is remembered for building the dynasty of a number of monuments and having more children than any other pharaoh. His reign was during Dynasty 19.